Hello everyone, this is Ben with Bathroom Brews. Welcome to the farm. If you take a look to your left, you'll see a nice plot of zombies ready to harvest. And if you look to your right, you'll see another plot of zombies ready to go. How did we get such a bountiful harvest of zombies? Well, you can thank Sidisi, Tyrant and Gyruda, Doom of Depths. Sidisi is a 4 mana, 1 generic, 1 black, 1 green, and 1 blue for a 3/3 legendary Naga Shaman that mills 3 cards when she enters the battlefield or attacks. And whenever one or more creature cards is put into your graveyard from your library, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And Sidisi's companion is Gyruda, a 6 mana, 4 generic, and 2 Dimir hybrid for a 6/6 Kraken demon that has each player mill 4 cards. Then you put a creature with even converted mana cost from among the milled cards onto the battlefield under your control. In order to have this beautiful girl as your companion, your deck can only have cards with even mana value. A very important rules note is companions have had their rules text changed since their original release. You no longer just cast the companions from outside of the game. Instead, you have to pay 3 mana at sorcery speed to put them into your hand. Then you cast them like a normal card. Depending on the printing of the companion, the text might differ, which is why I'm bringing this up. The game plan for this deck is pretty simple. We play Sidisi to mill creatures to make zombies, and then we turn our nice bouquet of zombies sideways, or we use zombie payoffs to win the game. For ramp, I chalk the deck full of mana dorks and creatures that let us put lands onto the battlefield instead of the usual non-creature ramp sources, because we want to be milling a lot of creatures to make a lot of zombies. Since we do want some self-mill aside from Sidisi and Gyruda, let's play Grizzly Salvage, a 2 mana instant for a green and a black that you reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card or a land card from among them into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. We also have Grapple with the Past, which is another instant which says mill 3 cards. Then you may return a creature or a land card from your graveyard to your hand. And finally, Satyr Wayfinder, a 2 mana 1/1 that says, when it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land from among them into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. I also included some mana dorks that let us mill and ramp at the same time. We have Deranged Assistant, which is a 2 mana 1/1 that we can tap to mill a card and add a colorless mana to our mana pool. We have Millikin, a 2 mana 0/1 that we can tap to do the same thing. And then we have Skull Prophet, a 2 mana 3/1 that we can use to either tap to add a green or a black, or we can tap it to put the top 2 cards of our library into our graveyard. To help with the Gyruda plan, I also made sure to include a bunch of clones that we can mill, and then have them enter as a copy of Gyruda to repeat her ETBs over and over again. Some of the best clones are Spark Double, a 4 mana 0/0 clone that says, you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature or planeswalker you control, except it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it if it's a creature, and it enters with an additional loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker, and it isn't legendary if that permanent is legendary. We have Sakashima the Imposter, a 4 mana 3/1 human rogue that when it enters the battlefield, you may choose a creature in play. If you do, Sakashima comes into play as a copy of that creature, except its name is still Sakashima, and it's still legendary, and it gains, you can pay 4 mana, 2 generic, and 2 blue to return it to its owner's hand at the end of turn. And finally, Phyrexian Metamorph. This shapeshifter costs 3 and a Phyrexian blue, so it's 3 generic, 1 blue mana, or 2 life depending, and you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact or creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. The only non-creature clone I included in the deck was Machine God's Effigy. It's a 4 mana artifact that you can tap to add a blue, and you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact and it has tap, add a blue. I do have another quick rules note for you. So Gyruda doesn't care if the cards milled are put into exile instead. Her ability simply tells you to pick one of the cards that has been milled, so Leyline of the Void or Rest in Peace won't shut that down at least. They will still hurt Sidisi though, so I made sure to include cards like Cankerbloom, a 2 mana 3/2 that says you can pay 1 and sacrifice it, and choose one of the following: destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate. We also have Foundation Breaker, a 4 mana 2/2 that you can invoke for 1 and a green, and it says, when it enters the battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. And finally, Outland Liberator, a 2 mana 2/2 that you can pay 1, sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. We also want ways of removing creatures that hurt our game plan, so that's why I included cards like Noxious Gearhulk, a 6 mana 5/4 with Menace that when it enters the battlefield, you may destroy another target creature. If a creature is destroyed this way, you gain life equal to its toughness. Necrodol, a 4 mana 2/1 human assassin with First Strike. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. That creature can't be regenerated. And Amphib Mutineer, a 4 mana 3/3 salamander pirate that when it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-salamander creature. That creature's controller creates a 4/3 blue salamander warrior creature token, and we can encore it for 4 and 2 blue. And finally, we have Massacre Worm, a 6 mana 6/5 that when it enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. Since Gyruda is essentially a partner in this deck, if it gets exiled, we'll want a way to get it back. That's why I included Rift Sweeper, a 2-mana 2/2 elf shaman that says, when it enters the battlefield, choose target face-up exiled card, its owner shuffles it into his or her library. And since we're on a budget, we're not running win conditions like Thassa's Oracle or Laboratory Maniac. So instead, let's add cards to shuffle our graveyard back into our library. This is to both protect us from mass graveyard hate, such as Bojuka Bog, and so we don't mill ourselves out of the game. Blessed Respite is a 2-mana fog that says target player shuffles their graveyard into their library. And then we have Guy's Blessing, a 2-mana sorcery that says, target player shuffles up to 3 target cards from his or her graveyard into his or her library, draw a card, but if it's put into your graveyard from your library, shuffle your graveyard into your library instead. I also want to make sure we get additional benefit from both Gyruda, Sidisi, and other creatures in the deck with ETBs after we've played them. So I added Thassa Deep Dwelling, a 4-mana legendary enchantment creature god that says, indestructible, as long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, Thassa isn't a creature, and at the beginning of your end step, you may exile up to 1 other target creature you control, and return that card to the battlefield under your control. And Panharmonicon, a 4-mana artifact that says, if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. There is one card I'm really excited to try out in this deck, and it's Diamond Lion, a 2-mana 2/2 that says, tap, discard your hand, sacrifice this card, add 3 mana of any one color to your mana pool, activate only as an instant. The idea of this is to turbo out Gyruda or Sidisi. I'm not sure if it's worth it, but hey, let's give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? Now for the fun part, winning with the deck. To help improve the zombies go sideways plan, I included Brawn, a 4-mana creature that so long as it's in our graveyard and we control a forest, creatures we control have trample. We have Wonder, a 4-mana creature so long as it's in our graveyard and we control an island, all our creatures get flying. Aside from turning the zombies sideways though, I wanted to include some zombie payoffs. So we have Shepherd of Rot, a 2-mana zombie that when we tap it, each player loses 1 life for each zombie in play, and Vengeful Dead, a 4-mana zombie that says, whenever it or another zombie dies, each opponent loses 1 life. And with that, thanks for watching. A special shout out to my patrons shown on screen here. If you'd like to join them in supporting the channel, you can find a link to my Patreon in the video description below. Joining gets you your name in the credits, some special Discord flair, a personalized deck tech, and the option to submit one of your current decks for some personalized upgrades. So check it out. Even $2 a month goes a long way. If you'd like to support the channel for free, just hit that like button and leave a comment to feed the algorithm. A special thanks to my friend Garrick Morgan for creating my intro music. As always, this has been Ben with BathroomBrewsMTG. And remember, always wash your hands.